Hello. You join me wiggling my way through the desert, hungry and alone. That's because today I'm finally attempting the torso challenge, but with a twist. You may have noticed something off about this guy, who I've decided to name Rotglob the Unbroken. Even by Kenshi standards, he's a little more mutated than most. That's because I've installed an absolute ton of mods, including the Crazy Bodies mod, which has turned Kenshi into a Chernobyl-adjacent hellscape full of freaks and demons. Our goal in this new world is to survive, get some robotic limbs, earn some money, and eventually hunt down and defeat the mysterious Hydra Beak Thing, rumoured to be wandering the bone fields outside Morn. This is going to be a completely solo challenge, so to start I'm just going to click on my Hydra helper and send him off into the wasteland to perish. So, first things first, Rotglob is pretty hungry, so we need to get him some food. Now, since the closest settlement was Sculpting, I decided to crawl over and see if there were any table scraps there which I could gobble up. So after a very painful journey through the desert, I finally arrived at Sculpting, where I hauled my way past the guards into the town. From here, I headed straight to the bar, hoping to find some real slop to steal, and fortunately found a pretty decent amount of food, from bread to chew sticks. The only issue was stealing it without anyone noticing. Now, the one upside of my small and squishy mass is that my tiny little slug body allowed me to hide myself behind a few barrels and snag some stuff without anyone noticing. So with my belly full for now, my next goal became to get some robotic limbs.
It would be so awesome. It would be so cool.
To achieve this, I would need money, and to get money, I'd need to scam some poor people into buying stuff from me. The only problem with this is that stealing items from people and trying to sell them back to the same owners had too high a risk of me being caught. So I was forced against my will to take the debatably more ethical option of looting dead people and creatures and selling their items in cities. I decided that this strategy would work a lot better over at Heft. A bigger city with more guards would mean more unlucky intruders to loot. Heft also had a limb shop where I could get myself new arms and legs once I had enough money. So, killing two birds with one stone, I slowly dragged myself out of Sculpting towards Heft, while scanning the desert for any downed NPCs to loot, and luckily within a few minutes stumbled across a pack of dying bulls. Looting them, I found some meat, leather, and most importantly, a bull backpack, which I could sell for about 1,000 cats. Spurred on by my find, I raced towards Heft, narrowly avoiding patrolling groups of skimmers and space marines. Since I was quite literally an armless, legless maggot without any toughness training, any hostile encounters would almost certainly end in either certain death or slavery. Thankfully though, neither of those options would become a reality I would have to worry about, as after tactically strafing around a few more potential threats, eventually I arrived at Heft. Worming my way inside, I headed straight to the robotic limb store to sell everything in my inventory, which landed me a pretty decent 1.9k. My plan was to buy 2 legs first, so that I could move around the map without having to maggot crawl everywhere. But even the cheapest economy leg was 3.4k. A price tag that would have crushed most people, but not our guy, Rotglob the Unbroken. It was time to hustle. The fight had just broken out outside the gates, so I swooped in like a much less mobile vulture, ready to claim my unearned rewards. A few weapons and shoddy pieces of armor. Not too great, but when you're at rock bottom, you can't complain. I spotted some runts fighting a space marine and did my job as a true bottom feeder by stealing armor from his victims. Now, despite having a 100% chance to actually steal the armor, I was still somehow noticed, which led to me getting arrested by a very jobsworthy guard.
Bro, please, bro, why are you doing?
So there I was, left to rot in jail for the time being, while I served my 10-hour sentence. This wasn't too bad, however, as joining me in the prison were a handful of incapacitated, easily lootable space marines. This presented a frankly delicious opportunity to take some stuff that didn't belong to me. So once I was released, I approached a marine ready to take his armor, crossed my fingers and prayed that this stuff would be worth at least a couple thousand cats altogether, and oh my god. 3k for the sword, 29k for the helmet, and 114,000 for the chest piece. I took everything I could from as many prisoners as possible, which amounted to around 530,000 in goods. It was safe to say, at least for now, that we were good for money. So good, in fact, that I could even keep a set of armor for myself and have plenty left over. I rushed back over to the limb shop, sold a pair of boots and a backpack, and in exchange bought some basic limbs. We were finally in action. Our boy Rotglob was no longer having to crawl his way face down through the sand, but could now instead use his new legs to hold himself up. Now looking like a bad dragon dildo, Rotglob's confidence shot up, and his face was plastered with a burning look of stoic determination. The notorious bone-fueled Hydra, if it even existed, didn't stand a chance. Now, I can't exactly explain why Rotglob's new legs looked like a deck of cards being shuffled, but it was probably due to the fact that I set his legs to the absolute minimum height. But even if his legs were just JPEGs instead of the 3D models, Rotglob was just happy to be able to move freely. And so with some cash to burn, the next step was to get the best limbs possible. I'm sure you guys know some better options tucked away throughout the map, but from what I've found, the Black Desert City Workshop is the best place to buy limbs. So off I shot, flapping through the desert like a cash counting machine. But on the way there, I stopped by Heng, where I sold a backpack to the general store, as well as some samurai armor, 3 pairs of Space Marine boots, and a single helmet in exchange for a near endless supply of food. I wouldn't be going hungry for a very, very long time. Proper nutrition for our growing boy would be the key for him training to defeat the Hydra, so having lots of food to rely on was critical. But now that food was sorted for a very long time, we pressed on through the desert of the Eye, and then the skim sands into the depths of the Deadlands. And finally, we arrived at Black Desert City, where Rotglob sat being moisturized by the heavily corrosive acid rain without even a flicker of pain.
Boss, please, can we talk, boss? I want to tell you something, boss.
I strolled slowly up to the workshop as the clang of my 2D metal JPEGs slamming into each other alerts the entire town to my presence. Once inside, I traded for 2 industrial lifter arms for plus 46% to my strength, as well as 2 scout legs with a combined buff of plus 55% to athletics. We had sorted food, money, and cybernetics, so all that Rotglob needed now was a training arc in order to raise his toughness, strength, and general fighting abilities.
I know Kung Fu.
For now, I'd start off using a sword to make combat a little bit easier at first, but once dodge, strength, and toughness had increased, I would switch over to unarmed in order to give Rotglob the greatest damage output. I had installed a mod simply called Apocalypse, which massively increases the spawn rate of cannibals and would see them slowly spread down from the northwest to the southern parts of the map if left unchecked. On top of that, I also had the Civilized Cannibals Prepare to Dine Edition mod downloaded, which turned the cannibals into utensil masters. So in order to cull the cannibal population, train Rotglob's combat abilities, and see some funny fork-wielding crackheads, I made my way up to the north, towards Holy Nation territory. But I would have to be very careful, as if I was knocked out, the cannibals would imprison me and would consume my bulbous mass. Yes, I could have just trained with some less deadly enemies, but I needed to truly test Rotglob if he were to fight the Hydra. Arriving at Bad Teeth in Okran's Pride, I witnessed the puzzling but welcome sight of cannibals fighting each other, so I rushed in to join the havoc. However, despite owning The Matrix Reloaded on Blu-ray and having rewatched it over 23 times, Rotglob was simply unable to copy Morpheus's immaculate swordsmanship skills, so he was knocked out, carried off, and tied to a prisoner pole.
Release me! Release me!
Hope had almost been lost. I was beginning to doubt if I would make it out alive. My only option was to desperately lockpick my cuffs and wait until things looked quiet enough for me to escape. Maybe if I let the cannibals kill each other, I could sneak out with only a few injured guards left, before breaking my restraints and attempting to shuffle quietly out of Bad Teeth. Despite there being plenty of cannibals left down towards the entrance, they were either too busy fighting amongst themselves to notice me, or just didn't find the side sight of a slug with sheet metal stuck into it to be too appetizing. Either way, I made my way to the exit and was lucky enough to run into some helpful strangers who gave me some first aid before sending me on my way. I'd learned my lesson and wouldn't be back, at least for now. Perhaps there was just no hope for a simple slugman in a fight, so it dawned on me that my only option was to undertake major invasive cosmetic surgery. If we wanted Rotglob to function as a powerful lone wolf warrior, he'd need to look the part too. Now, I could remember a plastic surgeon living in the outpost near Shem, and since I was somewhat close, I decided to head there. But I'm not sure whether it was the fact that it was hard to find a dialogue option pop up in the mass of tangled flesh, or if plastic surgeons' locations are randomized each playthrough. But no matter where I looked, no bars had a surgeon in them, until finally I found one hidden inside a way station. I messed around with the sliders, and before long we had the new and improved Rotglob.
Life is pain! I hate my—
Now looking like the quintessential human, I was finally worthy enough to don my Space Marine armor. Now I looked the part, it was time to truly start training my skills, this time on some slightly less brutal enemies first. I had a quick nap to heal my boo-boos and sprang out into the surrounding area, looking for local wildlife to maim. My first encounter was with a skimmer who took an absolute beating before finally flinging off into the unknown. But not before he had tanked my health bar, so I went back, healed up, and headed back out. This time to Gut, where I found a gaggle of terminally online beak things. I quickly got to the point where I could take on a squad alone, despite the huge damage to my health bar.
Holy look at all this damage!
So it was time to grind it out, and eat, sleep, game, and repeat. I repeated this process many times. Each fight, the amount of damage I would take would gradually lower, whilst my ability to mangle the beak things increased drastically. Now dominating the area completely, I even went to take down No-Face, a strangely OP politician, and hand him into the British police at Heng for a pretty decent 15,000 cats. As a final test and act of petty revenge, it was time to head back to Bad Teeth to once again face the cannibals and prove to myself how far I had come. Rotglob had done it, a truly unbroken man, risen from the ashes of his initial larval form and had now brought himself to the status of a god amongst men. I knew it was time to embrace my final form, that of a true warrior. So I ran back to Heng, headed into the bar, found another plastic surgeon and began my work. This is what Michelangelo must have felt like while sculpting David. I could see somewhere inside a true Adonis lurking. All I had to do was carve him out. Rotglob was now so large and beefy that I physically could not edit him inside the creation menu. Instead, I would have to lightly tweak a feature like his hips before exiting out, assessing the change, and going back into the editor to tweak him some more. But eventually I carved away the impure stone and had revealed a true specimen. So now there was only one more goal to achieve. It was time to truly prove myself by taking the final test, slaying the Bonefields Hydra. I set off, drawing ever closer to my destination, and once there I rest, ready for the fight, now using the entire overhead tarp as a blanket due to my massive size. And the next morning, I wake up at the crack of dawn and was ready to go play in the Bonefields. But as I travelled across the fields, I found no sign of the Hydra. 10 minutes passed, then 20 minutes, then an hour, then 2, and after nearly 3 hours of searching, organising my mod load orders, uninstalling some unnecessary mods, and destroying my PC in a state of rage, finally I must have done something right. As just outside of morn, I saw it. The fabled Beak Thing Hydra. I rushed to tie my shoelaces and waddled out of the gate ready to play. I tactically lock onto the Hydra,
target locked,
and advance my position. It was unclear who would come out of this battle alive. All that we could count on is this would be a neck-and-neck fight, and... oh. But we get back on our feet, and after a minor setback, we were once again ready to stop the Hydra's path of destruction. We deploy a tactical use of Muhammad Ali's famous shuffle to throw the Hydra off, and I'll be honest, things are not going as expected, but Rotglob didn't earn his title as the Unbroken for nothing. So once again, he picks himself back up and heads towards the Hydra, which is now terrorizing the city of Morn, thanks to Rotglob drawing it over. Luckily, some like-minded warriors join me in my struggle against the beast. Surely now, with a large fighting force behind me, oh, fuck. I'm sorry for everyone who is expecting to see some kind of satisfying conclusion to all of that. I genuinely, I thought I had it. Fuck. But on a lighter note, I need your help. I've shown off some wacky mods today, but I'm looking to gather the ultimate collection of silly game-breaking mods. If you've got any you want to share, just let me know in the comments and I may add them to my collection. I'd like to do a video on this collection eventually once it's big enough, but for now, we'll just have to see. I'm gonna go take some time to deal with the loss of Rotglob on my own, but thank you for watching. Until next time.